Hello, welcome to another episode of Character Corner. Today, the character I want to talk about comes from a book that I'm sure all of you at least know about and probably most of you have read. Of course, I'm talking about Harry Potter. This is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the first book in the series, and I wanted to talk about Professor Snape. I really like this character, not because of what he does throughout most of the series, but just because JK Rowling developed him so well. She developed all of her characters great, in my opinion. In fact, if you're an aspiring author, or if you are an author, I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to read the works of JK Rowling, because the reason she's so successful is that her writing is so good, it just sucks you right in. And she has a way of making you just feel the characters, and they just leave an indelible image on your mind from the very first time you read them. So let me start by reading how Professor Snape is introduced. This is on page 136. When Harry Potter and his friends and the Slytherin group, who are not Harry Potter's friends, are in the potions class with Professor Snape for the first time. Snape, like Flitwick, started the class by taking the roll call, and like Flitwick, he paused at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly. "Harry Potter, our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends Crabbe and Goyle sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up at the class. His eyes were black like Hagrid's, but they had none of Hagrid's warmth. They were cold and empty and made you think of dark tunnels. "You are here to learn the subtle art and the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began. He spoke in barely more than a whisper, but they caught every word. Like Professor McGonagall, Snape had the gift of keeping the class silent without any effort. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly shimmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." More silence followed this little speech. Harry and Ron exchanged looks with raised eyebrows. Hermione Granger was on the edge of her seat and looked desperate to start proving that she wasn't a dunderhead. "Potter," said Snape suddenly, "what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" "Powdered root of what to what?" Harry glanced at Ron, who looked as stumped as he was. Hermione's hand shot into the air. "I don't know, sir," said Harry. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. "Fame clearly isn't everything." Of course, Snape goes on to expose Harry as just a boy that thinks he's great but doesn't really know anything, and the Slytherin group really loves it. And what's great too is you really see a lot about everyone's character here, because Draco Malfoy and his friends Crabbe and Goyle are sniggering and laughing and thinking it's great that Harry's being picked on. Hermione can't stay in her seat because she knows the answers to every question, and she's so desperate to want to prove that she's smart. You see, and so JK Rowling just weaves all this together, so you're learning a lot about each of them, but you're introduced to Snape in such a way that you feel like he really hates Harry. And now I'm going to kind of give some spoilers away, so if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, you might want to stop right now and not listen to what I'm about to talk about. So Snape, he really does hate Harry, and he hates Harry's father. And you find out as the series goes on that he really loves Harry's mother. And the reason that Dumbledore trusts Snape so explicitly is because he knows that Snape's love for Harry's mother will carry Snape on to doing the right thing when it comes to Harry Potter. And of course, by the end of the book, we learn that his commitment is so strong that he actually ends up giving his life for the cause. But throughout the entire series, it's interesting because as you read it and you feel like, okay, is he a bad guy? I think he's a bad guy, but sometimes I think maybe he is a good guy. And of course, at the end, we find out he's a good guy. Again, if you haven't read it, I know it feels like, okay, everybody's read it. It's kind of a fad, but it's really that good. It's just great writing, and I'd encourage you to read it. So anyway, that's this week's episode of Character Corner. We'll talk to you soon.